Hey everyone, and welcome back to Fistful of Feminism. My name is Monica, and today we're talking about improv! I think I've mentioned quite a few times that I'm an actor and a performer and an improviser, but I've never really gotten to speak just about improv and my life in improv. So here it is. So for the last week of June, I spent the week in Seattle going to the Seattle International Festival of Improvisation, and I had the best time. And in that time, I was able to meet improvisers from all over the world who had some really interesting things to say about gender equity within improv, within our performance spaces, and it really inspired me to make a video like this. For a really long time, I haven't really spoken about my experiences as a racialized woman in the improv community, in my particular improv community, and how I experience improv elsewhere if I get to go elsewhere. You could say that this is a really long time coming, and I've had a lot of time to think about this. But basically, I have come up with 5 tips for male improvisers. Now, I know what you may be wondering. Okay, here she goes, just gonna harp on male improvisers for being the worst. Not exactly. I love all the male improvisers, well, pretty much all the male improvisers I've ever met. Improvisers are really good people. The things that we learn in improv, we transfer into our own lives and become very accepting and loving people. But that doesn't mean that our own biases that develop over the course of a lifetime and over the course of being socialized in the current context of like North America. And I'm specifying North America because I've never been to European countries or any other countries in the world, so I don't really know, except from what I've learned from other improvisers, what improv is like over there. So I can't really generalize when I talk about that. But I am talking about specifically just North America and the societal context that we are under in a system of colonialism and imperialism and racism. Those systems that I've talked about in all my other videos, which you can check out if you need clarification. So yeah, it's just been a long time trying to figure out what I want to say in a video like this and not wanting to target anyone. I don't know what it's like to walk through the world as a straight white cis male, but I do know that if you are a person that fits all of those identity categories, then you have probably heard stuff like this before that is directed to you. And the thing is that it's very easy to take that as a direct target at your personality, at who you are, at your identity. But really what it is understanding that your accesses of privilege have created a world for you that is not the same world as everyone else. It's understanding that even within an accepting community such as the improv community in many different places in the world, that privilege still seeps through. That your biases that you may have learned and been taught, and even if you didn't want to be taught those things, they still happened, those bleed into improv and they affect other people. Even though this is a 5 tips video for specifically male improvisers, what I want you to know is that if you fall into that category, it's not always your fault that you are doing these things, but it is your responsibility to listen to marginalized identities within the improv communities that you are a part of and understand that these are real realities. These are things that we face every single day, and you have a responsibility in helping us make that better. The best way you can do that is to sit back and listen sometimes. And right now is one of those times. Now, I do want to acknowledge that I am coming at this through the lens of being a mixed race Filipina woman, a straight woman, a cis woman, person who comes from an immigrant lineage, but ultimately is implicit in colonization, and I am a settler on the lands that I occupy. When I travel to other places to do improv, I am also a settler on those lands, or I should say a visitor on those lands because I'm not living there. This is also going to be a very simplified list, and there's probably going to be lots of things that I'm going to miss, which is why I hope to make these videos a series of videos where you can come and understand what improv is like for people that are not yourself. So with all of that said and all of that out there on the table, knowing that I'm probably going to miss some things and hopefully we'll explore in more videos, Here are my top 5 tips for male improvisers. Number 1, talk less. What you have to understand is that spaces, such as improvisation spaces, are open to you. They are accessible, they are there for you. Your ability to talk within those spaces has always been open to you, pretty much since the history of improv being born. You probably talk more than anyone else in any scenes, even in silent scenes. You probably communicate more than other people do. As a woman in improv, I have noticed that the amount of time that I get to speak versus the time that I have seen men speak on stage is not even comparable. When I say talk less, I mean understand that you are in a position to be an ally, that you can, for lack of a better term, use your voice by not using your voice. Sometimes it's hard for me to even get any word in edgewise. Or if I do start speaking, a male improviser will come in right on top of me and cut me off. Just understand that words equate to power in a lot of ways. And while all of us as improvisers should be learning that there are more ways to communicate than talking, just know that you probably have more time to talk than anyone else. So understand that, internalize it, and just talk less. Number 2. Give space rather than take space. This is ultimately connected to tip number 1, but give space for other improvisers. Give space for female improvisers on stage. Give space to racialized identities. Give space to queer voices. Give space. And that is sort of a problematic way that I'm approaching it, because it shouldn't be that we have to take space from you, or that you give us space as if you own the space. You don't own the space as a male improviser. We should all be able to own the space and have space within our improv spaces. So, connected to tip number 1, if you find that you are talking a lot, that you have a lot that you're giving, lots of offers out there, great. But sometimes you need to take a step back and give some space rather than taking the space on stage. If nothing is happening on stage, that doesn't automatically mean that you, as a male improviser, should take up that space. Recognize that, again, different identities and marginalizations of people receive much less space than you do. Again, just understand it, internalize it, and try your best to give more space. Number 3, give more status to female characters. Now this is like an entire video in itself, which I may be doing, but I want you to understand this sentence, that female improvisers are more than moms. And that is not to say that any character that is a mom is a lesser or bad character. That is not true at all. Moms are the most badass characters ever. But the way that moms are often portrayed in improv is subservient, quiet, as side characters. I've gotten used to taking on those subservient roles to the strong male characters. And frankly, if I'm gonna speak for myself, I'm fucking sick of it. There have been times that I have come out and played a very strong character with a cool voice and lots of other stuff, and maybe some things that people could attribute to being masculine. That's not really something that I really believe in on stage. I think you can just be a good character by being a good character. And I've gotten off stage and people have asked me why I decided to play a man. And that kind of highlights the problem here, is that we don't equate good, rounded characters to women. And this can be said for all different forms of media, of television, of movies, of stage plays, of so many different things. We have to work on this. And a strong female character shouldn't necessarily be white or straight or cis. We need strong representation in characters in all different facets of different lives and different things that can be represented on stage. The fact that I am a strong, independent, mixed-race Filipina woman and have never once played that character alone on stage makes me so, so sad. So coming back to the whole giving status thing, we as improvisers, we understand that we play with status on a regular basis. But next time that you start doing an exercise about status or in a scene where clearly there is status at play, recognize just how many of the people that have high status are men. This is something that is such an easy thing for us to play with as improvisers because we can say yes to anything that we want. Just make those simple choices. If a self-identified woman and a self-identified man step out on stage, give the woman some status. Make a woman a captain of a ship. Make the woman the manager of the bank. Make the woman the CEO of the biggest company that ever was. These are things that we can do, but in the moment we tend not to make those choices. And this is something that not just male improvisers should hear, but every single improviser of all genders, of all identities. We can all do this. And female improvisers, don't be afraid of that status. We have been basically told all of our lives that we don't deserve that status in scenes. But I say fuck that. Screw that. We can be those characters. And we are those characters in our everyday lives. Let's start seeing it on stage. Number 4, recognize your own biases. Okay, this one is a little bit hard because we're all working through that. I'm working through my own biases. I've learned all my life. You are. Everyone is. There are a lot of biases that we are taught. We are taught, again, that straight, white, men, cis, able-bodied people are like the best people. And that's messed up, obviously. To be working towards a more equitable improv space, we do have to understand that these biases are alive and well, that they don't just go away overnight, that we have to work on unlearning all of that all of the time. Again, I can't really speak for other countries, but from what I've heard from lots of the people that I met in Seattle, these biases are still alive and well in lots of spaces, especially biases against people of color and especially women of color. If you live in Canada or the United States, I can guarantee you have a bias against Indigenous people, simply because we grew up in a colonial system that benefits us but does not benefit Indigenous people. These are just things that, as improvisers, you might not always be addressing, and that's where I think intersectional feminism should play a crucial role in improv, and needs to. As we evolve and keep going with the art form, we want to be the most accepting people. Number 5, ask questions. Now, when I say ask questions, I don't necessarily mean find a woman or a tokenized, racialized person and ask them everything. Understand that female improvisers, whatever identities may be, we are not your educational tool. We deserve to exist in a way that doesn't necessarily have to educate people. If we choose to, great. If we don't, then we don't. The kinds of questions that I'm referring to are asking things like, who is present at this improv jam tonight? Is it all white folks? Is it all straight folks? Which you might not necessarily know, but it's still a good thing to ask. Are there queer representation here? Is there anyone here who is an openly trans person that gets to speak about their own experiences if they so choose? Is this space that I am creating, is it safe to all people? Is it accessible to people in wheelchairs? Is it accessible in many different other ways? In our scenes, do we ever talk about things like oppression? Do we ever talk about things like sexism? Do we ever talk about abilities and disabilities that people may face in their life? Basically what I'm saying is that our improv needs to be informed. We can't pretend that we exist in some kind of bubble, and when we enter that bubble, everything is okay. The truth is that people are multifaceted, and there are a lot of things that get excluded in improv. And the best way to even just start this conversation is by asking yourself some questions. All of the tips that I have brought up, those can all be questions to yourself. Am I speaking more than the female improvisers I'm working with? Am I giving space? Things like that. I wanted to make this list of tips broad for a reason. There are many specific things that we can be doing in our own communities based on the own context of our communities, and I can't really speak to all of those. Something that I am noticing that seems to be universal everywhere is that improv is not accessible right now, and as improvisers, I think we need to understand that and understand how we can move forward. Sometimes I feel the most safe in my improv community, and sometimes I don't. We are storytellers. We have such an immense privilege and power to be telling stories on stage. So the question is, What kind of stories make the cut? And what kind of stories are left behind? What I'm hoping to see in the most near future is that the stories that I am telling, that others are telling, that I'm seeing are diverse and multifaceted and have a basic concept of what intersectional feminism is. Improvisers are able to connect better than any other people I've ever met in this world. They're full of empathy and passion and love, and all of that can be harnessed for so much good. So dear male improvisers, to all of you that I know, that I don't know, that I know a little bit, that I'm going to meet in the future, you have to get better. We all have to get better together. And that starts with 5 easy tips. And I do want to say a huge thank you to the male improviser allies that I have met in my travels and in my own communities. I have been able to connect with you and have conversations with you that have left me so thankful. Oh, here I go. I can't tell you what it means to me to have conversations with men and privileged positions who actually genuinely care about what I face as a mixed race Filipina woman in improv. That space had never really been opened up for me before, and I don't know, it's a very powerful feeling to feel like there are so many male allies out there that want to see change, that are advocating for change, and are doing that in their own communities. So thank you. We are hoping to get to a world where I don't have to get emotional thinking about all of the men that have made such great allyships with me and have listened to me. Oh God. So thank you to all of them, and thank you for listening, and I really hope that this easy tip list will help you in your journeys through improv. So thank you all so much for watching. This has been a really important video for me to make, and I really hope that it helps, and I really hope that you can all go forward in your own lives and make spaces better for marginalized identities. It's so important. And a big shout out to all the people that I met in Seattle. I love you and miss you so, so much, and it's been very hard for me to process everything without you, but I hope to be visiting lots of you soon, and thank you for everything you have taught me, and thank you for sharing your stories, and thank you for being a part of my life. And that's it for me this week. As always, if you like, you can subscribe and go there and And I will see you guys not next Friday, but the Friday after that, which this video is quite late. Thank you all so much. Hope to be improvising with you soon. Bye.